Hello! Welcome to a quick, easy, durable terrain video where I'm going to show you how I make hills. Alright, I'm here in my lovely garage. I have got this giant sheet of 1-inch polystyrene. 1-inch polystyrene is best for making hills, in my opinion. Everyone uses XPS foam. XPS foam is really expensive. This was free. I've had it for years. It came with a sofa that we ordered many years ago. Was it a sofa or something else? I can't remember anyway. But it's 1-inch thick polystyrene. I have a very cheap hot wire, which I got off the internet for a tenner. Can't leave on too long because it does burn out. And I've got this lovely mask. A good quality mask is important if you're indoors and burning polystyrene, because polystyrene lets off some very unpleasant fumes, and we don't want those in our lungs. So I'm going to carve some hills. I'll do a voiceover rather than try and talk for a mark. It's not going to work, right?
Or just do it outside. That also works.
So if you want to know more about the materials I'm using, there is a separate video linked underneath this video, including about the hot wire, which basically is a wire that heats up very hot. And so what you want to do is, we can see here, I'm carving basically a rough circular shape out of this polystyrene sheet. You want to tilt it slightly so the edge, the top of the hill is smaller than the bottom of the hill, and it provides a really nice smooth edge surface you can cut in, but this is a roughly circular wobbly edge. There you can see. There you go. Alright, that's one done. As you can see, that's a nice hill. It's kind of a weird shape, but it's okay. You see on the edges, you can do kind of a striated edge. People like that. It's kind of a stylized hill. That's really hard when you come to coating it. And when it's polystyrene, you have to coat it because it's so bobbly. Obviously, using a hot wire means that you don't get a bobbly edge. You get a really nice smooth edge. Hopefully, you can see that. And we are going to coat the whole thing in a rock hard covering of terrain goop. I'm going to come on to later. Anyway, let's make like 10 more. All right, I've knocked out a quick 5 hills. Hot wire was getting a bit hot, so I've given it a little bit of a rest. Now I'm going to show you what we do with these hills to kind of coat them and make them durable. Obviously, they don't look very great, cheapo hills like that. And one of my friends saw them and said something like, "Oh, you're making those cheapo hills." I made all my hills like this. So now we are going to coat them in terrain goop. If you want to know how to make terrain goop, check out my materials video. But in brief, it is polyfiller or spackle or wool, tile, grout, that kind of stuff, mixed with PVA, mixed with sand and some dark brown paint to make a kind of brown, gloopy material that we use to coat all of our hills. It looks like this. It's disgusting. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a stick to coat our hills with terrain goop. We are then going to use a brush to striate the sides of them. We're going to pour sand over them, and then we're going to leave them to dry overnight. Let's get cracking. So I get a good gob of terrain goop. I tend to make it in big tubs because it saves time later on. You're just going to splodge it on like that. The texture of this is liquid, but not too liquid. You see, lovely, delicious. So we're going to move that all around. Now I use just this old kind of stick to spread it over the top. Obviously that doesn't look very good. So I use an old brush, a brush I literally don't care about, almost like a flat type brush. And we use this brush to paint it on the sides. Right, obviously it ruins your brush pretty quickly, so don't do it with a Winsor & Newton or anything like that. This is something like an old decorating brush. And then what I'm going to show you is how you striate the side. So when you've got it nice and covered, like this one on this side, what we do is you just pull it upwards like this. Yeah? By pulling it upwards like that, what you end up with is a nice sharp lip along the top so you can see where the edge of the hill is. And also it provides you with a nice striation at the side, which looks a little bit like a hill. Sort of like a Wargaming hill. And we're going to do that all the way around. For all of these hills. Oh, let's go. So this one's now completely covered, and so like I just showed you, we're going to go all the way around the edge. I think on top to keep it nice and steady. All the way around the edge to give it that nice kind of defined edge around the top. You can see that you can't tell it's polystyrene now. There's nothing showing of polystyrene, and this terrain goop, because it's got wall filler and PVA in it and sand, will set like rock. And we've done all the way around the edge. We're just going to smooth off the top with our brush, and that's why using a brush is better than a stick, really. It doesn't have to be super smooth. It is, after all, terrain, and we are going to texture it, and you can even flock it, so it doesn't really matter. But it's nice to give it a bit of a flattened texture so we can't see the brush strokes. Yeah? There we go. And then for the final touch, once each hill is done, we are going to sprinkle it with sand. So this is our kind of fine sand, builder's sand, very cheap. Any sand you can use. Don't use expensive terrain sand, please, because I care about your wallet. So we're just going to sprinkle that all around over like that, so that when it dries, it's going to have a slightly more textured finish. We obviously tip it off when it's dry, and then we're going to cover it with a PVA, a thinned out PVA, just to kind of really cement it in place. Okay, and that's what they're all going to look like. I'm going to do these other 4 hills and probably make some more. All right, so here's 5 hills. Coated with terrain goop, and then have sand on them. We're going to leave those to dry, but because I'm very lazy and I want to make this video now, here's a couple, like Blue Peter, that I did earlier. So these are what they end up looking like. You can see they are rock hard. They're covered in sand, which is kind of dried. I've coated them, so once they're dried, I then covered them with PVA mixed with a little bit of water, just to really make sure that sand is all solid. They're very solid. So now let's get the base coat of paint on them. So the way that I base coat hills, if you want to do an all rock hill, and bear in mind, people do make much more complex hills. Some people put bases on them. I like to keep them nice and simple. Some people like put cork bark to make the rock face. That's awesome. Do what you like. Right, if you want an all rocky hill, they're black all over. If you want a kind of more normal wargaming hill, if you like, which tends to be grassy or another kind of texture, we have brown on the top and black around the sides. That's our basic go-to. Okay, so we want a normal black paint. Here is a normal black paint. This one is an acrylic poster paint. I put it in one of these in the pot because it's easier. And then I have a little tester pot of very, very dark brown paint to go around the side. Darker the better because it will show up contrast more. And we're going to do a couple of very brief highlights. But yeah, let's get painting on these bad boys. I tend to use my black paint mixed with a little bit of water to make it flow better and to make it last more, and because it doesn't really matter. It's only terrain. Then we go all the way around with black. If you have a slopier edge somewhere, you can do that edge kind of all brown, and you can make it grassy down to the grass if you want. You can do what you like. It's your hills. I'm just really showing you how to make kind of the very quickest, easiest, most durable terrain. It looks good, it's easy to make. Really only takes a few minutes, as you've seen so far. I've already whacked out a bunch of hills. The longest time is waiting for it to dry. Right, so that terrain goop takes about 24 hours. Sometimes slightly longer, depending on how humid where you live is. So we're just going to do all the way around these ones in black, and then we'll do the top in brown. Okay, that's my black done. Now we're going to crack on. This is actually quite a nice tin of paint. I believe it's a posh one, but it still was discounted, so I just bought it because it's a nice dark brown base for my top. There we go, this is so simple. There, lovely. Now we have a fully base coated hill, and because our terrain goop is a brown colour, if it does get chipped, once we've highlighted up, it's really not going to show. Right, so that's the key, is that these, to be durable terrain, you want it to not be, you know, things will get knocked, things will get chipped. You don't want glaring white polystyrene or blue foam to be showing through, because that just ruins the immersion of, you know, Space Marines or Varangur or whatever you happen to be playing this weekend. Alright, there we go. Wasn't that easy? But in true Blue Peter style, we're going to move those ones that I've just done over there. Well, hey! Here's one I did earlier. In fact, here's 2 I did earlier. You can see they are really dark, which is great, because now we're going to highlight them up. So we've got a mid-brown, we have got a mid-grey. These are all tester pots of wall paint. This one's called Nutmeg Spice. It's nice, isn't it? A light brown and a light grey. We're going to get dry brushing, so we're going to go in with a light grey, mid grey rather first. So we're going to have a real heavy dry brush on our kind of rock face around the edge. And see the striation that we worked up with our brush now comes out really nicely. Yeah. So we have that kind of nice rocky look on the edge of our hill, which is great. We're going to dry brush that all the way around. Already looking quite cool. Let's do the other one. This one actually we had this one was a darker grey. I think it was called charcoal. This one I did in black. You can see already that's quite a different look. You do a heavier dry brush with this if you wanted to. So you take away more of that black. I actually prefer the charcoal, come to think of it. Too late now, done all the other hills in black. So you can see they're already looking pretty rocky, which is great. Now we're going to go in with our mid-brown on the top. Nutmeg spice or whatever spice you fancy. You need to be careful with your brush strokes on this one. You don't want the brush strokes to be too obvious. So we can do more of a stipple. It's a nice kind of earthy hill, right? A small detour from highlighting these hills, because that was last night I was doing this hill, which as you can see, looks pretty cool now, but we're going to make it look cooler. So obviously these sand hills are now all dry. I'm just going to coat them with watered down PVA, like this. It's about, I'm going to say, 1/3 water to 2/3 PVA. A lot of people use Mod Podge for sealing, which is something you can buy if you are not cheap like me. Yeah, so I literally coat the whole thing, as you can see, in this watered down PVA. Obviously it dries clear because it's PVA. And all it does is just seal on all the sand, gets it ready for painting. You don't have to do it. You can just paint straight onto the sand and the paint will seal it very nicely if you're short of time or impatient or lazy. This just provides a nicer finish, cleaner, happier, stronger, more productive, all that kind of stuff. Like that. So I'm going to do more of them and then we're going to go back to dry brushing. Right, back on track with our other two hills. So we've done our mid and our mid brown and our mid grey. We're going to crack in with our light grey, light brown. So here is our light grey. This one is called Pearl Grey. Nice. It's a very light grey. It's very well used by this point. So again, we're just going to brush it onto the rocky outline, which is starting to look very rocky. You see how the upward brush strokes that we did have created like rocky striations, exactly as if you've carved them out, but not quite as artificial. I suppose a little bit more natural looking, you know, as natural as a flat-topped rock could be, I guess. That's our greys, looking pretty rocky. Let's crack on with our light browns. This one's called Oatmeal. Nice. So we want to be a little bit lighter on top, not quite as dramatic, because a lot of people look at the top as opposed to the side, so we don't want obvious brush strokes, plus we don't have any crenellation. It's literally just textured by sand, but you can see just by doing this very light dry brush on top of the hill, a nice earthy hill. Right, you can actually just use this just like this if you want to. No one's going to stop you and no one's going to say anything because it's just an earthen hill. Perhaps it's been cleared for some clandestine evil ritual. Something like that. If you wanted to make more natural looking, more kind of brown, earthy rocks, you can actually do this light brown on the rocks before you do your lighter grey, and it kind of makes a more earthy seeming rock. But those are fine. What we can do now is we do a number of things actually. This is where you can really diversify, you can do whatever you like. What I like to do is I like to get a green. So I have a green tester pot here. This one's called Mossy Green, which is extremely appropriate for what I want to do. Can't actually get the lid off it. Ah! Okay. So we're just going to add a little bit of green to the top. Like this. What it does is makes it look a little bit like grass. And that dries, it will dry a little bit less kind of vibrant and look a little bit more like just a random grassy top. And there we have two very serviceable grassy hills. Grassy-ish, kind of rough wargaming hills. So what I want to show you is once you get the hang of it, you can do pretty much anything with these hills. So these are my new ones I've just done. You can flock them. Frequently I put static grass. So this one's static grass. That's static grass. That one is flocked. You can just have rock hills. These ones have got sand on. They actually go with this mat because it's got a nice beach mat. We have snow, where you can add snow. This one's a tundra one, which has some static grass and some snow made from white paint, PVA and sand. An even more snowy one. This one's got the crenellations on I talked about before. If you wanted to do that, that one hasn't, but it's the same principle. There's a desert one. That one's too tall, I think. Slightly too high, that hill. An older one. There's an earthen hill. But the point is, you can do pretty much anything you like once you get this method. All of these hills was made the same way. They all look great. They all look brilliant on the tabletop. And they are very, very easy and very, very quick to make. So you've just watched me make 2 hills, but actually there is 9, because I've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 total. And total, I must have spent half an hour on these hills over a couple of nights. Very, very simple, very, very quick. Made from just stuff you have lying around or very cheaply available. So yeah, hit me up if you have any questions, if you want to see any more detail. And we'll see you next time for another terrain video.